Okay, so TikTok, right. You know how everybody's talking about the ban. Coming up January 19th, 2025.
Yeah.
A lot of people are freaking out, I think.
Yeah, I get it. Makes sense, right? I mean, everybody's using it these days.
It's everywhere.
It's part of our lives, so, like, to have it just ripped away, kind of scary.
It is, and a lot of people are saying that VPNs are the way to go, keep using TikTok.
That's right, yeah.
Like maybe a secret backdoor.
Uh-huh.
So for the people who haven't really been down the VPN rabbit hole, what are VPNs?
Oh.
How do they work? Why are people thinking this is the answer?
Yeah, so VPN stands for Virtual Private Network.
Okay.
And what it is it's like a mask for your internet traffic.
Okay.
So it makes it look like you're browsing from somewhere else.
Right.
So in theory, you could connect to a server in, like, let's say Canada, where it's still going to be legal.
Right.
And boom, you're back on your For You page.
Right.
So that's the basic idea.
So it's like digital camouflage, basically.
Yeah, correct. Exactly.
For your location.
Yeah.
But you said in theory.
Right.
Is it that easy?
It's probably going to work for a little while.
Okay.
Like, especially right after the ban.
Uh-huh.
The thing is, the ban isn't just about, blocking the U.S. from accessing it.
Right.
It's about cutting it off the source.
What do you mean by that?
So, okay, think about it. Once the ban actually hits, TikTok's gone. It's gone from the app stores,
Okay.
U.S. app stores, gone. Like Apple, Google.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Right.
So no new downloads.
Obviously.
That's the obvious part.
Okay.
But also, no more updates.
Oh, interesting.
Even for existing users.
So wait, even if I have it on my phone now,
Yeah.
I'm going to be out of luck eventually.
Eventually, yeah.
Okay.
No security patches, no bug fixes, no new features. It's like your app's frozen in time.
Okay, so how big of a deal is it if you don't get the latest TikTok update?
It's a bigger deal than you might think.
Okay.
Imagine if, like, your phone's operating system never got updated again.
Okay.
Like, sure, it would still, like, technically work, in quotes.
Right.
But over time, it would become like a security nightmare.
Right.
So same with apps.
Okay.
Without those updates, you leave yourself open to vulnerabilities.
Okay.
Your data could be at risk.
Right, so it's kind of like driving a car and never, servicing it,
Exactly. Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to break down.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if you don't have a major, breakdown,
Right.
it's not going to run very well.
Right.
The user experience, right. Like, imagine, constant bugs, slow loading times, features that just stop working. You're not going to have the nice, smooth TikTok experience that you're used to.
Okay, so it seems like using a VPN is like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so VPN, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
What about those other workarounds I've seen online, like accessing other app stores?
Yeah.
Like in different countries.
It's possible.
Is that viable?
But it comes with its own problems.
Okay.
Like, you got to mess with your device's region settings.
Okay.
Which could, mess with your existing subscriptions, any store credit you have, even affect, other apps you might use.
Oh, okay.
That are region specific.
So you're basically playing App Store roulette.
Basically, yeah. It's a little bit risky.
Okay.
And then there's the option of using the website, the TikTok website.
Right. The website still has to be up, right?
Technically, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But using TikTok, on the mobile web,
it's
not very good.
Okay.
It's clunky.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be bombarding you with, prompts to download the app, which, you can't do because of the ban.
Right.
And a lot of features are just missing.
Okay, so not really a perfect replacement for the app.
No, not really, no.
What if you use, the desktop version of the website?
That's a little bit better,
Okay.
especially if you're just watching videos. You get a bigger screen. It's a little more familiar.
Okay.
But even then, you're missing, a lot of the things that make TikTok.
Okay.
Especially for creators.
Right.
So.
Okay, so we got VPNs, maybe app stores in other countries, risky.
Yeah.
Website, not so great.
Yeah.
So it seems like accessing TikTok after the ban is going to be pretty hard.
It's going to be a challenge. Yeah.
Like fitting a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
But there's another thing we got to consider.
Yeah.
That makes this even more complicated.
So remember how ByteDance is TikTok's parent company?
Right. Yeah.
So they're going to shut down TikTok in the U.S. themselves.
Okay.
One day before the ban.
Really? Why would they do that?
It's a little mysterious, right? Maybe they're trying to get ahead of things, show that they're cooperating.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they've just decided it's not worth the fight.
Right.
But either way, it means that even if you were, like, hoping to squeeze in some extra TikTok time, you got even less time than you thought.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is really turning into quite the saga.
It is.
So even if you're, a tech genius or whatever, finding a way to use TikTok is going to be an uphill battle.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And even if you find a way to do it, get around it,
Yeah.
are you really going to get the full TikTok experience, or are you just going to be, like, clinging to the shadow of what it was?
Right.
That's something to think about.
That is a great point. It's not just about access. It's about, like, the quality of that access.
Yeah.
Right? And if it's even worth the effort.
Yeah.
And the risk.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we talked a lot about the technical side of things.
Right.
But there's more to this ban than just apps and servers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It's about data privacy and government control.
Yeah.
And, like, the whole future of the internet itself.
Exactly.
So that's what we're going to talk about next.
That's where it gets really interesting. Welcome back. So, it's easy to get all caught up in the how, right? Like, how do I still get on TikTok? But, like, there's a bigger conversation happening here that's way beyond just this one app.
Right. Like, this whole thing's opened up, like, a can of worms.
Yeah.
With, like, data privacy and national security.
Right.
And, like, the power, of governments versus these tech giants.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's where it gets really interesting. Because depending on, like, who you listen to, this ban, it's either, like, a necessary thing to protect our data, or it's, like, a really dangerous step towards censorship.
Right. Like, everyone's kind of picking a side here.
Yeah.
It's getting really messy.
It is.
But let's try to break this down a little.
Okay.
What are the main arguments for and against the ban?
So on the pro-ban side, you have folks that are, like, really concerned about the way TikTok collects data.
Right.
And they point to the fact that, like, ByteDance, the parent company, it's in China. And there's this worry that, like, this data could end up in the hands of the Chinese government.
So that's that whole, like, China's going to spy on us thing?
Yeah, basically. And for some folks, that's, like, a deal breaker.
Right.
They see it as, like, a straight up national security risk.
Right.
And to be fair, there have been some documented cases where TikTok employees have, like, accessed user data, which, doesn't exactly help to calm those fears.
Right. So there's at least some truth to that then.
Yeah.
So what about the other side of the coin?
Yeah.
What are people saying against the ban?
So critics of the ban, they say, like, this sets a really dangerous precedent for censorship. They say there's, like, no concrete evidence that TikTok data has actually been misused, like, by the Chinese government. And they're saying that this is more about, like, political posturing than, like, real security concerns.
So it's like where do we draw the line kind of thing.
Exactly.
Like, if we ban TikTok because of, like, this potential risk, what's next?
Exactly. And they also point out that, like, tons of other apps, including ones made in the U.S., collect, like, massive amounts of data about their users.
Right.
So they say that, like, going after TikTok specifically seems, kind of arbitrary, like, even a little discriminatory.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope argument for sure.
Yeah.
But it makes you think about, like, the bigger picture. Like, where do we draw the line between, like, protecting our data and also protecting our freedom? You know?
Exactly. It's complicated. There are, like, really good points on both sides.
Yeah.
And there's not, like, an easy answer.
Right.
But I think what's important is that we, like, look at those different perspectives, that we don't just, like, blindly accept one or the other,
Right. Think critically, do your own research, come to your own conclusion.
Exactly. And that's especially important when you think about, like, the ripple effects of this ban, because it's not just about the app, right? It's about the future of, like, the entire internet.
Okay, yeah, so unpack that.
Okay.
Like, what ripple effects are we talking about?
So, like, to start, think about all the creators out there who've, like, built their careers on TikTok, influencers, musicians, small businesses.
Right.
They're all facing a ton of uncertainty right now.
Yeah, imagine spending, like, years building your following, and then bam, it's gone.
It's a lot to deal with. It's a huge disruption. And the question is, like, what happens to them?
Right.
Do they all just move to other platforms?
Right.
Can those other platforms even, like, give them the same kind of success? It's a big unknown.
And it's not even just creators.
Right.
It's like the whole culture
Yeah.
that TikTok has, like shaped,
Totally.
like the music, the fashion, the language we use, even,
Yeah.
like it's all been affected by TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok's become this huge, like, cultural force. It's changed how we, like, consume and create content.
Right.
So, like, what happens to all that without TikTok?
Yeah.
Does it just disappear? Does
Right.
it change into something else?
Yeah.
Hard to say, but it's definitely something to think about.
It's like we're about to see this huge, like, cultural shift,
Yeah.
but we don't even know, like, what the new landscape is going to be.
Totally.
And, speaking of unknowns,
Yeah.
I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier, like ByteDance's decision to just shut down TikTok before the ban even happens.
Yeah.
It just seems so strategic, Like, what are they really doing here?
It does raise a lot of questions. Like, why go through all the trouble of, like, shutting it down yourself if the ban's already coming?
Exactly. Honestly, it makes me think, are they, like, playing 4D chess?
Right.
Like, maybe they're working on, like, TikTok 2.0, you know? Like something that's going to address all these privacy concerns.
That's an interesting theory.
Right.
Imagine, like, a platform with the same fun, creative energy.
Right.
But with, like, way better security and transparency. That would be huge.
Right. Maybe this ban will actually make things better.
Yeah.
Like be a catalyst for something really innovative.
Yeah.
It could happen.
It could. Or maybe it's like just the first step in this like really long fight about who gets to control the future of the internet.
Right.
I guess only time will tell.
Right.
But one thing's for sure, social media is about to change like in a really big way.
Yeah.
And we're all going to be along for the ride.
Yeah, we are. It's crazy to think one app can have this much power, right? It shapes culture, starts careers, like creates international arguments about data,
Yeah.
and control.
It really shows you like how much technology is a part of our lives now, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about the big picture, like creators and the culture.
Right.
But it's important to think about like you.
Yeah. What does it mean for the everyday person,
Right.
who uses TikTok, scrolling through the For You page.
Yeah, exactly.
To laugh or learn something.
Yeah. And I think like one of the big takeaways from all this is how important it is to be like digitally literate.
Okay.
We've got to be smart about like how we consume information online,
right?
Understanding how these platforms work,
right?
What kind of data they're collecting and like how that can be used.
So it's not just about like having fun, it's also knowing what's happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly. Because like when you understand how the algorithms work, you can start to see how they're like shaping your experience.
Right.
Online and like even offline,
It is kind of crazy when you realize like how much these platforms are influencing us, like what we like, what we buy.
It is,
our opinions, like everything.
Right. And that's why it's like so important to be aware of that. To like think critically about the stuff that we're seeing online.
Right.
And to like make sure you're getting information from a bunch of different sources.
Like don't just stay in your little bubble.
Exactly.
Right.
And this whole TikTok thing is like a perfect example of why that's so important.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about this one app,
Right.
It's about understanding like all the big things that are happening in like the digital world.
Like the data privacy stuff and the national security debates, like governments versus these tech companies.
It's all connected.
It's all connected, yeah.
And as users, we actually have more power than we think.
Okay.
Like the choices we make, what we say, the platforms we use,
sure.
It all makes a difference.
So it's not just about like watching, we actually can shape this.
Yeah.
Like the internet.
Absolutely.
This has been a really, interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like we went from 0 to 100 really fast,
We did.
Talking about VPN hacks to like the entire future of the internet.
We covered a lot, that's for sure. But I think that's like what makes this topic so interesting.
Yeah.
It touches so many parts of our lives.
Yeah, it does.
From like the personal level all the way up to the like global level.
Absolutely. So, we're wrapping up here.
Yeah. What's
the one thing you want listeners to take away from this whole thing?
I think the most important thing is just to like stay curious,
Okay.
Keep asking questions. Don't just believe everything you hear.
Right.
And never stop learning, because, like, the internet is always changing.
It is.
And the more we understand about it, the better we'll be able to, like, deal with the challenges.
Right.
And also, the cool new things that come along with it.
Yeah, that's great advice.
Yeah.
So to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive
Yeah, thanks.
into the TikTok ban and all the craziness around it.
Uh-huh.
It's been a wild ride, and who knows what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
But one thing's for sure, it's going to be interesting. Thanks for listening.